Hello, world, and welcome back to the Simple Sports Podcast. It is I, Capo, and we are back. Week 5, Thursday night games in the books. Got a lot of things to talk about today. Really quickly, we're going to talk about Titans to start off with, them breaking the rules. Cowboys versus the Giants, what that's going to look like. Browns versus the Colts, another big game for a couple of different reasons. But mainly today, the NFL Power Rankings. I had them. I usually do them every 4 weeks. I had it made on Wednesday. Didn't do an episode on Thursday. Watched the game. I had to make an adjustment with the Bucks. So we'll talk about that. We'll go through all 32 NFL teams, not in great detail. I won't bore you to death, but we're going to go through all 32 NFL teams and why I have them where they are. And of course, some picks and some more Draftkings stuff. I won't go through all the detail in the picks. I'll give you a brief outlook as to why I'm picking it the way I am. But normally I would do this episode on all the picks, but because I need to do the power rankings as well, so I don't want to bore you to death with all that. So we are going to start off talking about the Titans breaking the rules really quickly. Look, they broke the rules. They need to be punished. Some people are calling for them to be banished from the season. I highly doubt the NFL does that. Which, to start with, I just think come on, let's not get crazy here. But they did break the rules. They need some sort of punishment. If they had to forfeit a game, I'd be fine with that. That whatever. They got to be punished for breaking the rules. Is it the end of the world? No. But listen, the rules are the rules, and they broke them. They brought a lot of Patriots culture over. I guess that's another one that they snuck in there. So Titans get punished. If they do end up getting punished, I would have no problem with it, unless it's like people are saying, banish them from the rest of the NFL season. Then I think we would be getting a little bit crazy. I don't think it would go so far as to draft picks. That I think even that would be too harsh. A nice hefty fine, maybe even forfeit a game. But otherwise, let's not get crazy here. Now, Cowboys versus Giants. Boy, the Cowboys are in a world of hurt, and yet they are sitting pretty because they are in the NFC East, and at any moment things could turn around for any NFL team. They could get hot, they could hit a streak, win some games, and in the division they are in, that would assuredly win them the division. But I'm not liking their chances against the Giants. They got a lot of people out this week. And Tyron Smith, they just lost for the season. They got 2 undrafted free agents, 1 rookie, 1 guy that they just signed. I don't remember where he's from. That is not going to bode well for Dak Prescott this week versus the Giants. Now, Giants offensively are a mess, but defensively, they are actually not that bad. 12th in defense and 12th in points allowed, I think. That's pretty good. That'll work. It's not the best, but that'll work. That'll win you a few games. But they can't do anything offensively. But listen, man, you would think this is a game that the Cowboys should win and win going away. I would just hold off on that. I would still probably pick the Cowboys ultimately to win. I'm not so sure they could even cover this. It's a division game, and the Cowboys are just as bad defensively as the Giants are offensively. The question is going to be, can Giants defense limit what is an explosive offense for the Dallas Cowboys? Can they limit them, and can they score some points on defense? That's really, or on offense, because their offense has been atrocious. They are averaging, I think, 12 points a game or 14 points a game. Even the Baltimore Ravens, vaunted defense from way back in the day, who were terrible offensively, were in the low 20s per game. In fact, I think they average it right at 20 a game. This is atrocious. So, I'm not. Listen, obviously, I'm not confident in picking the Giants, but shock me none would it be if the Giants were to beat the Cowboys. Now, Browns versus the Colts. This is another big game for a couple of reasons. One, Colts are obviously still in contention for the AFC South title, and as a Titans fan, obviously that is a problem. So the more games that they lose, the better. And so I am cheering for the Browns to win this game for that reason. Another reason I'm watching this game is because this is going to be the first real true Browns test in a lot of people's eyes. I think the Browns have won all the games that they were supposed to win, and one game that most people didn't think they would win, and they won. And so to me, their competition level is not in question to this point. Now, for a lot of people, it is. And so for a lot of people, versus the Colts defense especially, this is going to be their first true test of the season. It is going to be very interesting to see how they come out and perform this week versus the Colts, in light of all that talk around them. And the fact that they could go on their first 4-game winning streak, and I wouldn't even begin to imagine how long it's been since the Cleveland Browns have won 4 straight games. Big deal for the Browns. Big boost of confidence if they can go out, win 4 straight after the performance they put up last week. Because this is the thing, they didn't play great in week 2. They played okay. They played well enough to win, obviously, but they didn't play great. They were sharp. They came out swinging, but it wasn't like a masterpiece. Week 3, same thing. Week 4, same thing versus the Browns or versus the Cowboys. They played well, extremely well offensively and defensively early. When the game was 41-14, you would have thought it was the best win of the season. And then they proceeded to give up the lead. The Cowboys cut it down to within 3, and all of a sudden there's a black mark on that victory, at least in my eyes. So what is going to be interesting to see is, can they follow up a big performance like that, even with the letdown defensively late in the game, with another big win? So that's what I'm going to keep my eyes on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into my NFL power rankings, all 32 teams, why I have them there. Not going to spend so much time on the bad teams, obviously, but I definitely want to go through all 32 teams and talk about why I have them. So let's get started now. Now, power rankings. So I want to start at the bottom, and the reason is I want to build some suspense up into the top 10, obviously. But I also don't want to spend too much time on bad football teams. So we're going to talk about the bad teams first. Go ahead and get it out of the way so we can spend a little bit more time as we get further and further along into the better teams. Now, I'm not going to talk any about the bottom 4. The Jets, I have at 32, Giants at 31, Falcons at 30, Jags at 29. I thought about flip-flopping the Jaguars and Falcons, but honestly, any of those last 4, whatever, who cares? They're bad football teams. They all have bad football coaches. They all have, for the most part, bad quarterbacks. Still some questions around Minshew. Still some questions around Darnold and Daniel Jones, given their situations, lack of talent around them, lack of any structure or head coaching acumen. The Falcons, they just have an old, bad quarterback and a terrible defense. Matt Ryan is not, I shouldn't say he's a bad quarterback. He's a great quarterback in that he can put up numbers. He can make accurate throws. As the cliche saying is, he makes all the throws, but he doesn't make the winning plays, and those are the ones you need. Is he great for everything else? Yeah, but he doesn't make the winning plays. So in that regard, they have a bad quarterback, and then the head coaching situation is what it is. The defensive situation is what it is. Those are your bottom 4. Now at number 28. The Washington football team. I still can't get used to that. Already benched Dwayne Haskins, as I figured would be coming. Didn't think he was performing that well. And what's crazy is they can still win this division. They got Kyle Allen. They won a few games with him last year in Carolina. Maybe they can win a few games this year with him in Washington with a much better defense and at least a complementary set of weapons offensively. So can they win some games with Kyle Allen? Maybe. I have a feeling there's a potential we could see Alex Smith this year as well. Let's not totally rule that out. They're going to Kyle Allen in the time being, but just keep your eye out for an Alex Smith, because we've seen Kyle Allen hit the moon and come crashing back down to earth hard last year. Wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar this year. Maybe he wins a few games in his first couple of starts, and then he comes crashing back down to earth, as we probably think he would. At number 27, the Denver Broncos. Really, this boils down to a ton of injuries, and there's a lot of teams that are going to suffer because of that, obviously. The Broncos are one of them. Quarterback out, best wide receiver out for the year. You've lost Phillip Lindsay a few games. Von Miller out for the year. I mean, the list goes on and on. Bad string of luck in what was supposed to be a sleeper team this year, the Denver Broncos, picked by a lot of people, including yours truly. Really got ravaged by injuries, and not a whole lot you can do when that is the case. Now, at 26, the Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, Joe Burrow is going to get killed playing for Cincinnati because they can't protect him, and it is terrifying. And let's be fair here. He doesn't protect himself a lot either. There's a lot of plays he makes where he's trying to do too much, slides the wrong way in the pocket, or slides up, tries to take a run. Whatever the case may be, holds on to the ball too long. All the things a rookie quarterback would do. So I'm not killing him for it. I'm just saying, you can't have a quarterback that is failing to protect himself, and you are also getting him beat to death. Now maybe they go hand in hand in that he's so fearful of getting beat to death by this offensive line not being able to protect him that he is a little bit antsy and anxious in the pocket. He looks, I think, is one of his most interesting attributes is his ability to move around in the pocket and his awareness, his presence within the pocket. But man, you get hit so many times like that, you start getting a little jittery. And I'm not saying he's flinching in the pocket, but I think some of his movement and some of his decision making has come from being blasted because his offensive line can't protect him. At 25, the Miami Dolphins. Listen, this is simple. It's Tua time. We know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. It's not that great. It's pretty good. Can win you a few games. Can also lose you a few games. And that's what we've seen with the Dolphins. They could probably be higher if Tua were the quarterback. But the question is how much. I'm not still. I need to see it myself. I'm not one of these Tua, cheerleaders, I guess you could call them, or fanboys or whatever, who think he's this all-world talent. I need to see it. I heard the same thing about Sam Darnold, and he's a borderline bust. I heard the same thing about lots of guys, and some of them didn't even make it to the end of their rookie contracts, let alone take over the league. So until I see it with Tua, I'll believe it then. The Cowboys, if I could put them any lower, I would, but there's no way in good faith I could say they're not better than the Dolphins or the Bengals or any of those other teams. So I put them as low as I could at 24. Cowboys, the effort quote by Xavier Woods drove me crazy. They clearly hired the wrong coach, and the reason I know they hired the wrong coach is because great coaches win. Even if they don't win all their games, if he was a great coach for this team, they would have won more than one game. They wouldn't have gotten down 41-14 to the Browns. They wouldn't have lucked out a win against the Falcons in a 40-39 game in which they basically needed the Falcons to wet the bed, which they did in what after seeing the Super Bowl and the week prior, I didn't think they could top either one of those, and yet they did. So that's what it took for the Cowboys to get a win this year, a single win this year. He's not a great coach. Aaron Rodgers aired him out in Green Bay. Simple, low football IQ, etc., etc. I'm not saying all that myself, but we've seen people say this about him. He went and studied all the analytics and yada, yada, yada. And yet here we are. The Cowboys are 1-3. You ran Jason Garrett out of town, and now you're playing him this week, and you know he's going to be up for that game. The Cowboys, 24th, best team in the league. At 23, the Texans. I'm going to leave him here for now. I have so much respect for Deshaun Watson that I couldn't put him obviously below any of those other teams. But as a whole, they are not very good. Their coaching and GM situation with Bill O'Brien was clearly going the wrong way. He made a bunch of boneheaded moves. Didn't bring back Jadeveon Clowney. No Honey Badger. No DeAndre Hopkins now. Bringing in Laramie Tunsil. Although you need a left tackle now, you ship all this stuff out the door. No draft picks next year. The list goes on and on. Everyone wants Eric Bieniemy to be the coach, and I say, why in the world would you go into such a hole dug and just jump right in? Texans to me would not be the ideal location for Eric Bieniemy. 22, the Lions. It's time to clean house in Detroit. No more Matt Stafford, please. No more Matt Patricia. No more fake pencil behind the ear that you never use. Please send Matt Stafford somewhere where he can win some games. I don't necessarily think Matt Stafford is this great all-time quarterback, but you cannot argue the arm talent. You cannot argue the the way he's able to produce throughout football games and throughout seasons, I think he's better than what he is in that I think he has been in such a terrible organization for so long that this is what he has become. And I think even if you were in just a different team altogether, you'd see a different Matt Stafford, maybe a little bit improved. Again, do I think he's like a top 5 quarterback? No, I don't. But I do think he's better than what he is sort of projected as. And he is unfortunately stuck in Detroit. The Eagles at 21. There's not a whole lot to say here. Carson Wentz not playing great. Offensive line not playing great. Defense is playing okay, but not great. Weapons are hurt. There's all sorts of things going on with the Eagles, and yet here they sit as of now atop the NFC East. If they can get things together, as I said about the Cowboys, they're already in first place. They could take a stranglehold on it. If things break the right way for them and they start just simply playing better. But as of right now, at 21, and don't see it looking any brighter anytime soon. The Chargers at number 20, they have a rookie quarterback with a bunch of injuries on defense, and they are unable to win games that way. You're just not going to do it. If you have a great defense, some offensive weapons, and a rookie quarterback, you can probably win some games. If you have a rookie quarterback with a ton of weapons and a great offensive line and an okay defense, not a horrible defense, you could win some games. What you can't win games with is an okay defense and a rookie quarterback with not the greatest weapons. And again, a bunch of injuries on what was a very, very good defense is now not bad, but just middle of the road. A rookie quarterback's just not going to win those games. And you see it play out in their games. The games that he started, they all have been close games. But a rookie quarterback is not going to be able to overcome that. Probably at 20, a little low, but in the state that they're in, that's where they have to be. The Raiders are fading a lot to a lot of people, I should say, but not to me. I never believed in the Raiders, never believed in Derek Carr. Coming around on John Gruden, but still a little bit questionable. I don't know how long he continues to go with Derek Carr, but at the same time, who's he have to turn to? You got Marcus Mariota there, but is that such a big step up from Derek Carr? I don't think it is. And so Raiders fading to a lot, not to me. I got them at 19. The Panthers, I think, are appropriately ranked. Okay defense. Defense flies around, which is great. It was one of the things that I thought about going into the season. Teddy Bridgewater going into a new system with a new team, he's going to need a pretty good defense, at least a decent defense, in order to be able to buy himself some time, so to speak, as he progresses within the offense. Offense is looking better. Defense is looking better than I thought they were going to be, but they're not a good defense. Let's not get it twisted. I think they are appropriately ranked at 18. Number 17, the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe rounding into shape. Dalvin Cook looked explosive the last 2 weeks. I've always said the Vikings don't have explosive players. I have to amend that because they have Dalvin Cook. And that dude can hit his head on the goalpost at any moment. Now, defensively, still struggling a bit. But if they do round into shape, that's just going to be another NFC team that's going to be in the way for a lot of people. I still don't think defensively they're where they need to be. And they do still have Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So 17, again, seems appropriately or seems appropriate for the Vikings. At 16, the 49ers, this is due to injury. They're obviously not the 16th best team in the NFL, but in their current state, yes, that's where they rank. Jimmy G out, Kittle out, Bosa, all these guys have been missing time, and the list goes on and on for them as well. I got the 49ers at 16. At 15, just a nudge ahead of the 49ers, mostly because they beat them and they are healthy at the moment, are the Arizona Cardinals, but they are slipping quickly. I had them in the top 10. Or if I had done this, say in week 3, I would have had them in the top 10 going into week 3. They have gone from there down to 15 and could potentially slip further if Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury don't adjust and step up. At 14, the New Orleans Saints. This is because they cannot produce without Michael Thomas, and that is scary. Now, They were able to overcome an early 14-0 deficit against Detroit. If that's the Packers, if that's the Bucks, if that's even at this point, I would say the Rams, any of these good teams, they're losing that game. And 3 years in a row, we've seen them fumble the bag at the end of the year in the playoffs. You can say what you want about the pass interference call, but you still got the ball. You still had the ball in overtime, and you didn't win the game. And you can come up with scenarios for all those different moments, if you will. But the bottom line is they didn't get the job done. And now without Michael Thomas, they have not been able to produce. Now, they did well last week, like I said, against the Detroit Lions team, who just isn't very good. So I'm not putting too much stock into that. We'll see how they look on Sunday. At 13, I got to move them up just a little bit. In fact, we'll move it. We'll move them now. I'm going to put the Colts at 13. I had the Colts at 12, so I'll tell you who the other team is in a second. Colts at 13. Really, I'm just not sold on the offensive plan here. Okay, they have a great defense, and that's fine. But A, how long is that going to hold up? And B, where are the points going to come from offense? Do you think that defense is going to be able to shut down the Chiefs or the Ravens? Or I would even throw a team like the Titans, who could score a lot of points. The Patriots, the Steelers, not that they're scoring a lot of points, but they are gifted. They're more gifted than the Colts are offensively, and they have just as good of a defense in Pittsburgh. Patriots, not so much on the defense, but they could score some points with Cam Newton offensively. I have the Colts at 13, mostly because I'm not sold on the offensive game plan here. In particular, I'm not sold on Phillip Rivers. Listen, everyone can love the competitor in Rivers, and that's totally fine. Like, I love that too. But at the end of the day, you got to win games, and I'm not that confident in the Colts. Now, the Rams at number 12. Another team that I'm losing a little bit of confidence in. Day by day, they came out into the year, out of the gate, I should say, playing pretty well. And last week versus the Giants, now maybe they just slept on the Giants and they'll bounce back this week. We'll have to see. But that was a big letdown. They still got the win, but it was a pretty big letdown against the Giants. So I have the Rams at 12. And the team that I moved from 13 played on Thursday night, the Bears. I will move them from 13 up to 11. Still don't think the Bears are quite there. Their record says that they're not the 11th team, but they're more like the 8th team. But this is about what my eyes see. And they've made the switch from Trubisky to Foles. I think that's going to do wonders for them. But what they should be doing is kicking themselves for not signing Cam Newton, because Cam Newton with this team, they would be easily undefeated and potentially the best team in the NFC. That's how good that they could be with Cam Newton. That's how many weapons they have. I think Anthony Miller's a solid receiver. Obviously, we know what Allen Robinson is. Jimmy Graham still looks like a corpse running around, but evidently can still make a few big plays. At least in the end zone, can come down with the football, and that's what's important. Running back situation is a little iffy with Tariq Cohen out. David Montgomery's not that great, but he's pretty good. But defensively, man, Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, although he missed like 15 tackles in the backfield the other night, that defense is hellacious. Fuller, Jackson, it's a hellacious defense. Cam Newton with this team, they could easily be the number 1 team in the NFC, potentially the number 2 team overall, obviously behind your Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we are in the top 10. At 10, the Cleveland Browns. I can confidently say I think they are right where they belong. Don't think they're the best team in their division, obviously. Don't think they're a great team. But I don't think there are, or I should say, I only think there are 9 teams that are better than them. We'll get into, obviously, what those teams are now. You can go through any of the teams from 11 all the way down to the end and ask me, do you truly think they're better than the Rams right now? Yeah, I do. Do you truly think they're better than the Colts? Yep. Bears? Yep. keep on going. I think they're better. I think they're right at 10. Do I confidently think they're better than who I have at number 9, the New England Patriots? No. Do I think they are better than who I have at 8, the Steelers? Nope, can't say that. Could they be? Could they beat those teams? Probably. They probably could. But can I say that now? Now, if they beat the Colts on Sunday, I'd be happy to move them up 6, 7, something like that. But can I move them outside of 10 right now? No, I can't. At 9, as I mentioned, the New England Patriots, I think they are higher, but I'm not totally convinced yet. After I saw them play without Cam Newton, I definitely think they are probably in the top 6, top 8 at least. But I have them at 9. I just need to see a little bit more offensively. Julian Edelman looks like he's ready to call it quits, and they don't really have much else outside of that. Now, I do like the new running back. Damian Harris didn't play early to start the year. He is a big dude, and he can move. He's not that elusive, but north and south, that brother can move. So we'll see how that looks in combination with Cam Newton as the season progresses. The Patriots at 9. At 8, as I also mentioned, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I worry about them offensively in that they won't be able to keep up with the more explosive offenses. Now, maybe they won't need to because their defense is, like the Bears, hellacious. And so maybe if they can keep them to the low 20s at best for these games, then yeah, Steelers are right in there with everyone else. But I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to, at least the Chiefs for sure. I find it hard to believe they're going to keep them in the low 20s. That's just not, I don't think that's happening. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans. Yes, I have them at 7. I found it unfair. So I've had them at 6 since the season started. Since before the season started, that's where I put them at 6. It's hard for me to move them because they are 3-0. Now everyone else has played a 4th game, at least, and some will be on their 5th game this week. They'll be playing their 4th game against the Bills. It's hard to move them because they are 3-0. Now, it wasn't a pretty 3-0, but they are nonetheless 3-0, and they did beat 3 okay teams. They beat the Vikings. They beat, who did they beat? They beat the Jaguars, not very good, and it was a close game. And who did they beat open week? I don't even remember. Who did they play open week? Point being, it's hard to move them because they are 3-0. They can't go any higher because unless teams lose and the defense improves, I just can't put them ahead of the Bills. I can't put them ahead of the Ravens, things like that. They're missing a few guys, and I'm really concerned about the defense, the way it's looked. Now, maybe this early bye week will be exactly what they need in that they get a lot of guys back and, things of that nature. We'll see how they respond having to play 10, 11, 12, 13 weeks in a row to end the season. That's not going to be fun. But I can't move them any higher unless any of those teams lose this week and they win. And I'm not ready to put them lower than the Steelers or Patriots or Browns just yet unless I see how they play on Sunday. So Titans at 7. Bills, I have at 6. I think they're really good. I don't think they're better than any of the top 5 teams that I have. In fact, actually, let me amend this. So another amendment I'm going to make. I'm going to move the Bills up from 6 to 4. I'm going to drop the Bucks, who I had at 4 prior to Thursday. I'm going to drop them to 6, and I'm going to leave the Baltimore Ravens at 5. So from Titans at 7, we go to the Bucks at 4. The offense is catching up. Brady is fine. He had a gaff Thursday night. So what? It's not the end of the world. It's not going to cost them the season. Sure, obviously you would love to win that game. Defensively, they were just getting all over Tom Brady all night. And listen, it's a game that they should win most likely. But again, the Bears are not a bad football team. Nick Foles didn't play great to start the game, but he played pretty great to finish it. And Tom Brady made a costly mistake at the end in order to cost the Bucks the game. Am I going to kill them for that and that they're a bad football team? No. Again, use your eyes, guys. It is not about just the wins and the losses in terms of trying to rank a team. You have to take into consideration the things that happen in the context. Are the Bucks out of the top 10? No. I can't leave them at 4, though. So I drop them down to 6. At 5, I lose a percentage of faith every week in the Baltimore Ravens, especially after I've had a keen eye on them since the Chiefs debacle. And then they come out last week, and I thought they would just absolutely house the Washington football team. And they did ultimately. But they did not start off great. It was not that incredible. And we talked about the Browns versus Washington, how people were saying, well, if they lose to the Washington team, you know what could be said? Well, the same could be said for the Ravens, who ultimately beat Washington as the Browns did, but it was not pretty. Now, maybe that's more of a credit to Washington than it is a discredit to those teams. I'm just saying, I got my eye on it. And then at 4, we're going to put the Bills. They can't go any higher unless someone loses. It's just that simple. I think they are of the 4 best teams in football right now. At 3, I have the Packers. At 2, the Seahawks. And at 1, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Bills at 4, like I said, unless one of those other teams loses, I can't really put them any higher because confidently I cannot say that they are better than any of those teams. Packers at 3. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind right now. Playing some lowly competition, so I still am not totally convinced on the Packers. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Lions. Last week they beat the Falcons. So I'm not totally convinced just yet on the Packers, but you can't argue with the results. You can't argue with the way Rodgers has been playing football, and you can't argue with the record. So the Packers are the number 3 team in football. The Seahawks I have at 2. And these last 2 are really, you can pick them in any order you want. To me, until the Chiefs lose, they'll stay at 4, or stay at 1. And until it's a loss in convincing fashion, they'll probably stay at 1. It boils down right now to coach and quarterback for number 1 and number 2. Seahawks, obviously you got Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. Another few guys that are stepping up, David Moore and Swain. And then, listen, their role will be lessened as the team gets healthier. We know this, but it certainly is not going to go away. That's been 2 nice, more reliable guys for Russell Wilson. I hear Colin Cowherd say all the time, Russell Wilson has no weapons, which to me is the most idiotic thing you could say. Listen, Tyler Lockett may not be the best receiver in football. DK Metcalf may not be the best receiver in football, but there are not very many guys I would take over either of those 2. And then, of course, as a number 3, you throw in David Moore, you throw in Swain, Greg Olsen, the vet. Will Dissly is a great tight end. Let's stop with the. I love Russell Wilson, but let's not pretend he has no help in Seattle. And then finally, the Chiefs again, coach and quarterback Mahomes and Reed. Mahomes had 2 great games and 2 okay games. Didn't play terrible. Played terrible in spots in a particular quarter or what have you, but overall 2 okay games and 2 great games, and yet they are 4-0. And so that should scare everyone. You shouldn't concern yourself with whether or not they are hot right now at 4-0 because they're not. What you should concern yourself with is whether or not they will, quote unquote, get hot and when that's going to happen. And the fact that they are already 4-0, what is that level of play from the Kansas City Chiefs going to look like? Going to be unreal. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your NFL Power Rankings as of week 4. We would do this all over again in another 4 weeks after week 8, after the games, going into week 9. Now, really quickly, I do want to give you my picks for this week. There's a few good games, a few good picks I think there are to be had, some money to be made. So let's get started with the first one, Carolina at Atlanta. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each of these. I'm just going to quickly tell you why I think each team wins the game, or why I picked it the way I did. So Carolina at Atlanta. I'm taking Carolina here +1. Basically, they just need to win the game, which is fine. They're playing at Atlanta. They are 2 teams headed in opposite directions, which is why I like Carolina here. Carolina, albeit not a great team, they have won a few games and have at least some cohesion, whereas the Falcons are just a mess right now. Obviously, defensively, they are absolutely terrible. Offensively, they have struggled the last few weeks with injuries and not being able to move the football and score points. I'll take Carolina +1 on the road, no fans and all that jazz. Las Vegas at Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 11, and I like them to cover. I think they got punched in the mouth by the Patriots and were still able to respond. I think this week they are going to absolutely rock the Raiders. -11, I will gladly take that. The Rams at Washington. Washington is +7.5. I don't like it. I don't love it anyway. Kyle Allen, different at quarterback. I think only way you pick this is they don't have any recent film on Kyle Allen. Only thing they can go to is what was last year, and what was last year is in Carolina, not in Washington. And it's 7.5, a touchdown. After the performance the Rams put on last week against the Giants, I think they bounce back here and get the win. But I think Washington, listen, they didn't lose against the Giants, but it wasn't a pretty game. So in bounce back, I just mean I think they play much better. But I do think Washington gets a little spark this week from Kyle Allen and their defense being able to play well. 7.5 is a lot of points. I would take Washington to cover this one at home. The Jaguars at the Chargers. I wouldn't bet this if my life depended on it. But in order to give you my pick, I would go with Houston -5.5 at home. Much like the Washington football team, just a breath of fresh air. Bill O'Brien is gone. They can finally come out and just let loose and play free. I think they're going to roll the Jaguars, no matter how bad either team is. Jacksonville is bad, and they've always been bad. Houston, I think there's a little bit of a pride factor here that's going to play into this for this week, and I think this week versus the Jaguars at home, they are going to roll. I like Houston -5.5. The Jets hosting the Cardinals are +7.5 favorites. I would gladly take the Cardinals. As bad as they have been playing, there's no way in the world I'm putting any money on the Jets. I don't care if this spread was 14.5 or 20.5. I would still bet the Cardinals. Philly at Pittsburgh. Philly is a dog, road dog, +7. Boy, I think I'm going to take Philly here. I don't like the way Pittsburgh's been playing offensively. Again, defensively, they've been great. Now, the question is going to be, can the Eagles stop shooting themselves in the foot and actually score points against this defense and move the football effectively? 7 points, again, is a lot. Even for a road team that's desperate, I think 7 points is a lot. I like Philly here, +7 on the road. The Bengals at Baltimore, -12.5. Give me the Bengals +12.5 at Baltimore. Yes, I know it's on the road. Yes, it's against the Baltimore Ravens, who are historically known for beating down on the Bengals. But the Bengals got a new guy in town. His name is Joe Burrow, and that dude can play. And 12.5 points, even on the road for a rookie quarterback and only his 5th start against this team who has Super Bowl aspirations. Yeah, I'll take him. Joe Burrow, +12.5. Give it to me. Miami at San Francisco. Miami is a +8 road dog to San Francisco, who is starting Nick Mullins, I believe, once again. I like Miami here. I actually think we are going to see Tua in this game. We heard the noise last week. Trust me, they heard the noise too. If Ryan Fitzpatrick starts this game off in a bad fashion, which I think is totally possible, especially against a Nick Mullins-led team who, if this game is even remotely close and Ryan Fitzpatrick is stinking it up, they're going to give Tua the opportunity to come in and save the day and move the franchise forward. I think this is the week we see it. +8 to the Dolphins. I will take it. The Giants at Dallas, +8 on the road at Dallas, the division rival, and I am taking the New York Giants. I think they're going to upset Dallas this week outright. I think Dallas is hurting. I think they are hurting, and they got shamed by the Browns last week, and they got their hearts ripped out. First, they lost to the Browns, and then when the game was within reach, they basically quit on defense, and then they tried to justify it afterwards. I think they are hurting, and I think this is going to be the kill shot for the Giants. Jason Garrett, revenge game. Daniel Jones gets to go up against a obliterated and eviscerated defense in the secondary, and defensively, again, not the best defense in the world for the Jets, but they are for the Giants, but they do get to go up against two undrafted free agent tight end or tackles, with Tyron Smith now being out for the year. I do not think this is going to go well for the Dallas Cowboys. I love the Giants +8 this week in Dallas. Cleveland hosting the Colts. This is a pick 'em. Draftkings has it as +2. Everywhere else I see is a pick 'em game. So I'm going to go by the +2. I've been going by William Hill Sportsbook for everything else. But this is a pick 'em. So that's the only spread that I see. It is +2. Colts are the Browns dogs at home, and I'm taking them. I think they beat the Colts on a late field goal. I do think it's going to be a really close game because that offense or that defense for the Colts is pretty darn good. But I think ultimately the Cleveland Browns win this on a late field goal. I like the Browns +2 at home. Minnesota at Seattle for the late game, 8:20. Minnesota is a +7 dog in Seattle. 7 is a lot of points. And the Seattle defense is not very good against a Minnesota offense that seems to be clicking. I like Minnesota to cover. I like Seattle to win. And then finally, or I guess not finally, well, yeah, the Denver and Patriots game has been, I believe, canceled altogether, or maybe postponed. We'll have to see. So the last two games, Chargers at the Saints. I like the Chargers here to cover. I like the Saints to win. 8.5 points for the Chargers is a lot, even on the road, but it is turf. Justin Herbert has shown that he's able to score points. They just haven't really been able to stop anyone. Maybe they get an opportunity this week against a Michael Thomas-led Saints team. I like the Chargers to cover the 8.5 on the road. And then finally, we have the Buffalo Bills visiting Tennessee Titans. No spread here. No odds have been released that I see, so we'll keep an eye out for that. I think last time I saw this when it was originally picked, it was a 1-point spread. Buffalo favored by a point or maybe a 1.5. If that is the case, I think I like Tennessee here. Yeah, I'm picking my team at home off of what has been a weird 2 weeks, but I think they're going to get enough people back that's going to help them out as far as the personnel goes, especially on defense. Dory Jackson's been out, a few other guys. So I think that's going to help them out. They also will likely have A.J. Brown back, which is obviously going to help them out offensively. Going to get a chance to rest and recap what they've had so far during the season. Yes, the Bills are rolling, but I think they're going to get a real true test this week. I like the Tennessee Titans. If it is a +1 spread for them, or anything positive, honestly, I think they cover that. So that is all for the picks. Now, we got a few things to talk about from a DraftKings perspective. So let's get right down to it. All right, so last week I had a few guys that were sleeper picks at quarterback, namely Baker Mayfield. This week, he is one of my top fades. Obviously, do not play him against the Colts defense. There's no way he's going to have a decent performance like he did last week. It wasn't great fantasy-wise, and, it didn't quite pay off, but definitely stay away from Baker Mayfield this week. I thought he would put up numbers against the Dallas Cowboys defense that just isn't very good. Didn't turn out to be the case. That was the opportunity to do it. This is definitely not the opportunity. One matchup that I do like is Teddy Bridgewater and DJ Moore going up against Atlanta. DJ Moore hasn't had, an outstanding year in fantasy terms, but this week he gets his get-right medicine against the Falcons defense, who is just dead last, averaging 35 points per game given up. I like Teddy Bridgewater as a value play along with DJ Moore here. That's your stack to play. And then you can stack up obviously everywhere else. Another team that I like, that I don't like, is the running back situation with Cleveland. Going back to Cleveland up against the Colts, I'd stay away from Kareem Hunt this week. I just think they're going to have to find a different way to score points. That's the one thing the Colts aren't going to allow the Browns to do. They're going to try to make Baker Mayfield beat them. And I don't know if I would go with Kareem Hunt this week. Another one that I would stay away from, anyone that's playing for the Eagles. Anyone playing for the Eagles this week, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Jackson, whoever it is that you were thinking about playing from the Eagles this week, I would stay away from. That is going to be one of the ugliest games of the week. Now, some guys that I love offensively, I would actually play Matt Ryan this week. If he has a healthy Julio or Calvin Ridley, that's the stack I would go with. If you can't get one or the other, I would stay away from it altogether. But otherwise, I love that matchup. Some matchups I hate for wide receivers. I would stay away from the Kyle Allen and like McLaurin stack. I know a lot of people are going to try to do that because it's a cheap way to try to potentially get a boom or bust, and then obviously stack value or stack talent elsewhere. I would also, vice versa, stay away from any of the Rams guys. No Jared Goff, no Cooper Kupp, no Robert Woods. Robert Woods potentially, but no Cooper Kupp, no Jared Goff. Not this week. That pass rush is too hellacious. And then on the opposite side, Aaron Donald is going to be all over Kyle Allen to start that game. Now, some guys you could play for value. I mentioned earlier, Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton going up against the Cowboys at 31st pass defense in the league. Go with Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton if you are looking for a nice value play. If you even want to throw a third in there, you could throw in a Wayne Gallman. I would probably not do so. I would just, with so much value at quarterback and receiver there, I would definitely stack up at running back this week. If I were going to use that combination, Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, I think is going to put up some decent offensive or some decent fantasy value this week. And then a few tight ends that I like. Johnny Smith going up against the Bills. Bills are not great defending tight ends. I would love a Johnny Smith play. I would also consider, if you want to stack a really heavy team and try to find value somewhere else at tight end, Ferguson or McCole Pruitt are both good examples. They don't get a lot of work in between the numbers or in between red zones, but in the red zone, they both get targeted quite a bit. If you're looking for a cheap value play at tight end, those are your guys. Otherwise, you got your obvious studs, your guys that are just going to get a lot of volume, right? Amari Cooper, your Devontae Parkers and guys of that nature. So those are a few sleepers. Now, some I guess must plays, if you will. A Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill stack versus the Raiders. Yeah. Tyreek Hill is $6,900 in fantasy in Draftkings, and I would stack him against the Raiders along with Patrick Mahomes. Their defense is not that good, and they're not going to be able to keep up with them offensively, which is going to force them into a lot of turnovers and punts, and it's just going to give the Chiefs a chance to feed the beast. And so I would love a Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes stack this week. Otherwise, a few other plays that you could make to try to gain some value. A few guys that just missed the cut, I guess. Kenyon Drake versus the New York Jets. Again, the Jets are just an absolute dumpster fire, and so it's not going to be without a gamble because Chase Edmonds, who gets a lot of work in the passing game. But they're favored over the Jets, and the Jets, again, not very good. Probably going to turn the ball over a few times. So even if you don't get all the work for Drake, throughout the course of the game, just in the sheer amount of volume that he's going to get, is I think worth it. Another guy would be Todd Gurley. He has a lot of usage, and so what you really need is for him to get the usage in the end zone, which is what he's excellent at. 19 attempts, 4 touchdowns in the red zone, leads the league for running backs for the year. The problem is everything he does outside of the red zone isn't that great, and so your only hope is that he scores a lot. But considering who they're playing this week, I think you should be okay with the Todd Gurley play for this week and a little bit cheaper go at running back. Those are some of the guys I would play. Again, Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones along with Matt Ryan if he's healthy. Teddy Bridgewater and DJ Moore or even Robbie Anderson would be a decent play. He's a little bit more expensive. DJ Moore is than Robbie Anderson, but it's not by much. And then, like I said, Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton. I would also not rule out like a Dak Prescott and say Michael Gallup play this week. It's very likely that Dak is going to put up a lot of points again because that's what he does. He puts up a lot of fantasy points. And the guy that he's going to be throwing to usually is CeeDee Lamb. I think at this point, CeeDee Lamb has made it clear. I think in my eyes that he's the best wide receiver talent that they have anyway. And I think it is clear that Michael Gallup is number 2. They keep trying to make Amari number 1, and he's not number 1. So those are your DraftKings picks. Those are your picks for the spread. Those are your NFL power rankings. It has been a fun one. I will see you all on Monday after the Sunday games to talk about it all. Until next time, peace.